At 9 years old, he watched his father get poisoned by enemies. His family was abandoned on the steppe to die. No food, no shelter, no allies, just a mother, several young children, and the vast, merciless Mongolian wilderness, stretching endlessly in every direction. Most children in that situation would have died within weeks. This one survived, and then spent the rest of his life making sure that every single person who had ever wronged him and every empire that had ever underestimated him paid a price so devastating that the world has never forgotten it. His name was Temujin, and this is the story of how the most abandoned boy on the Mongolian steppe became the most feared conqueror in the history of the world. To understand Genghis Khan, you have to understand where he came from, because nothing about his origins suggested greatness. He was born around 1162 on the windswept grasslands of Mongolia, a land of brutal winters, endless plains, and constant tribal warfare, a place where life was measured not in years, but in survival. His father Yasuge was a minor tribal chief, powerful enough to have enemies, but not powerful enough to protect his family from them. When Temujin was around 9 years old, his father was invited to share a meal with members of a rival tribe, the Tatars. It was a trap. They poisoned him. Yasuge died on the ride home, and with his death, everything collapsed. The tribe abandoned the family immediately. In Mongolian tribal culture, loyalty followed strength. A dead chief meant no protection, and a widow with young children was not worth protecting. They were cast out onto the steppe with almost nothing, no livestock, no allies, no food, just Hoelun, Temujin's mother, and her children, surviving on wild berries, roots, and whatever small animals they could catch. For years they lived like this, on the edge of starvation, in constant danger from rival tribes, wolves, and the savage Mongolian winter. Most children who grew up like this became nothing. But something was happening inside Temujin during those years of suffering that nobody could see yet. He was learning that loyalty had to be earned, not assumed, that alliances were weapons, that weakness invited destruction, and that the world would only respect one thing: power, absolute, undeniable power. As Temujin grew into a young man, he began to do something no Mongolian tribal leader had ever successfully done before. He started uniting the tribes, not through birthright, not through inheritance, but through a combination of military brilliance, strategic marriages, ruthless elimination of enemies, and something far more unusual for his time: genuine loyalty to those who followed him. In Mongolian tribal society at the time, soldiers fought for their tribe, their clan, their bloodline. When a chief died, his army dissolved. Temujin changed that entirely. He created a system where soldiers were loyal to him personally, not to their clan, where merit determined rank, not birth, where any man, regardless of his tribal background, could rise through the Mongol army based entirely on his ability and loyalty. This was revolutionary, and it was terrifying to his enemies, because it meant his army did not dissolve when things got hard. It grew stronger. He forged alliances with powerful figures, most importantly, his blood brother Jamuka, and the powerful chief Togrul of the Kirat tribe. He used these alliances to defeat his enemies one by one. The Merkits, who had kidnapped his wife Borte, were destroyed. The Tatars, who had poisoned his father, were annihilated. Temujin ordered every Tatar male taller than a cartwheel to be executed. An entire generation wiped out. The Naimans, the Kirat, tribe after tribe fell before him. And in 1206, at a great gathering of Mongolian tribes known as the Kurultai, something happened that had never happened before in Mongolian history. Every tribe on the steppe submitted. Every chief bent the knee, and Temujin was given a new name: Genghis Khan. universal ruler. The steppes of Mongolia, a land that had never known unity, were unified under one man for the first time in history. But he was just getting started. What happened next is almost impossible to comprehend. In the space of roughly 25 years, Genghis Khan and his armies conquered more territory than the Roman Empire acquired in 400 years. Let that settle for a moment. The Roman Empire, history's most famous conquering force, took 4 centuries to build its empire. Genghis Khan did more in 2.5 decades. He turned his attention first to China, specifically the Xixia dynasty in the north. They fell. Then the Jin dynasty, one of the most powerful empires in Asia, with tens of millions of people and some of the most advanced military technology in the world. They fell too. The Mongol armies moved like nothing the world had ever seen. They could travel up to 100 miles per day on horseback. They communicated across vast distances using a relay system that made their coordination terrifyingly precise. They adapted. They learned siege warfare, using Chinese engineers to build the weapons that broke Chinese walls. Then came the Islamic world. The Khwarezmian Empire, stretching across modern-day Iran, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan, was one of the wealthiest and most powerful empires on earth. Its ruler, Shah Muhammad, dismissed the Mongols as primitive steppe nomads.
Sire, the borders have been crossed.
They are mere barbarians. They pose no threat to my empire.
He made the most catastrophic mistake in the history of the medieval world. When Mongol trade caravans were massacred on his orders,
Sire, the Mongol trade caravan has been seized at Otrar.
Small bands of barbarians from the steppes do not concern us.
Genghis Khan sent 3 ambassadors to demand justice. Shah Muhammad had the ambassadors killed.
A message from the master of the world, Genghis Khan.
Your master is a barbarian from the steppe. We do not negotiate with dogs.
What followed was not a war, it was an erasure. City after city fell. Samarkand, one of the greatest cities in the world, was sacked. Nishapur was destroyed so completely that Genghis Khan's daughter reportedly ordered even the cats and dogs to be killed. Merv, home to over 1 million people, was reduced to rubble. Historians estimate that the Mongol campaigns through Central Asia killed as many as 40 million people. Some regions lost 3/4 of their entire population. The great cities of the Islamic world, centers of science, mathematics, astronomy, and literature, were turned to ash. And Shah Muhammad? He fled from city to city in terror until he died alone on a small island in the Caspian Sea, still running from a man he had dismissed as a barbarian. Here is what makes Genghis Khan one of the most complicated figures in all of human history. He was not simply a destroyer. Within his own empire, he was something almost contradictory. He established one of the first international postal systems in history, a relay network of horses and riders that connected his vast empire and allowed information to travel at unprecedented speeds. He created laws, the Yasa, that applied equally to everyone in his empire, including himself. Corruption was punishable by death. Theft was punishable by death. But so was the abuse of power by his own commanders. He guaranteed religious freedom across his entire empire at a time when religious persecution was the norm across most of the world. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and shamans all practiced freely under Mongol rule. He opened trade routes across Eurasia that would later become the Silk Road, connecting civilizations that had never traded before and accelerating the exchange of ideas, technology, and goods across the entire known world. Genghis Khan was simultaneously the greatest destroyer and one of the most progressive administrators in the medieval world. A man who could level a city of 1 million people and then create laws protecting the rights of the people in the next city he conquered. History has never quite known what to do with that contradiction. And honestly, neither have I. In 1227, Genghis Khan died. The exact cause remains unknown to this day. Some say a fall from a horse. Some say illness. Some say wounds sustained in battle against the Shah. He was around 65 years old. His final request was extraordinary. He asked to be buried in secret. No monument, no tomb, no marker. His body was carried back to Mongolia. Everyone who witnessed the funeral procession was killed to protect the secret. The soldiers who buried him rode 1,000 horses over the grave to erase any trace of it. To this day, nearly 800 years later, nobody knows where Genghis Khan is buried. The man who conquered half the known world left no grave for history to find. But the world he left behind was transformed forever. The Mongol Empire at its peak was the largest contiguous land empire in human history, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, from Siberia to the Persian Gulf. 4 million square miles of territory under one family, started by a 9-year-old boy abandoned on a freezing steppe with nothing but survival instinct and a rage that the world had never seen before and has never seen since. The boy they left to die built the largest empire in human history, and the world is still living in the consequences of what he did. What do you do with a man like Genghis Khan? He was a monster who killed tens of millions of people. He erased civilizations. He turned the greatest cities in the world to dust. He was also a visionary who created religious freedom, merit-based promotion, international trade, and legal equality at a time when none of those things existed anywhere else on Earth. He was abandoned, starved, humiliated, left to die, and he responded by becoming the most powerful human being who ever lived. History does not offer us clean heroes or simple villains. It offers us human beings, shaped by suffering, driven by ambition, capable of both extraordinary destruction and extraordinary creation. Genghis Khan was all of those things at once, and 800 years after his death, we still cannot agree on what he was. Maybe that is the most human thing about him. If this video changed how you see one of history's most misunderstood figures, share it with someone who thinks they already know this story. Subscribe to Legends of the Past, because next week, we are covering the battle that finally stopped the Mongols, the one army that stood in their path and refused to break. That story is coming, and it is worth waiting for.